When people transition from one job to another, I've seen patterns and I've experienced it myself. When you're moving from one job to another, for a lot of people, they look at the fastest way to get to their next role. So I've seen some patterns, and identifying these patterns is really important for me. And it's really important for the people that I help develop their career strategy. So when people first either get laid off or they decide to move from one role, not knowing where they will land next, the right after period is about kind of ruminating. What happened? Why did it happen? Why did it happen to me? What could have been the fact? What did I do? What did other people do? What did I not do? And why do I deserve this? So it starts off with, hey, let me try and be objective about it, to really being sometimes upset and angry at people who may have contributed to the decision to you being let go, or circumstances. There's maybe some enmity between you and the people in your previous organization, whatever the case might be. And sometimes actually it's just sadness. Yeah, I knew it was coming. They say it had nothing to do with me, but why was I on that list? So a lot of people kind of ruminate, and in that, the healthy thing to do, of course, I'm not saying that it's not good to process all that, but there's a way to process with the help of professionals, where you process with the goal of moving on, to process something, make sense of it, and move on, as opposed to being stuck in that cycle. So the people who don't take the time to go through this process and they just rush into applying for jobs, they do miss out on processing what has just happened in a healthy way. So I strongly suggest taking that time, but I don't suggest that one should ruminate or just get stuck there. And there are people who think they're moving on by applying for jobs and doing all the things you do. Once you move from one job to another, or you get laid off, et cetera, they jump into applying and focusing on their resume and all that without processing what happened. So you don't want to rush into it, but you don't want to get stuck there either. So a lot of people spend some time, sometimes ruminating and sometimes processing it. But then most people, and I have been caught in this cycle myself, most people jump into applying, sprucing up their resume, applying. And the pattern is, some people, when they start applying, they start getting interviews right away. So they're excited. Hey, I got this. This is exciting. I get to meet new people. They get confident in the skills that they have. The amount of interviews that they have lined up really gives them a lot of confidence, which is great. But there are ebbs and flows. There's highs and lows. So that's just the beginning. There's some early victory, important to celebrate those. But at the same time, it's important to know that there could be times where you don't have a lot of interviews, and that could be right around the corner. It could be because it's seasonal, there's vacation, there's holiday season coming up, whatever it is. So then there are people who don't get any bites, any interviews, because of the market, their industry. There's bad news in the headline, holiday season, whatever it is. And then those people think that they're not working hard enough to get to their interviews. So they double down on sending out resumes. So they spruce up their LinkedIn profile, spruce up their resume, and boom, 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 start sending out resumes. And the ones who don't get interviews, they double down. So if they're doing it for 3 hours a day, they do it, start doing it for 6 hours a day. I call, and what other people call, doom jobbing. So they're on Indeed, they're on LinkedIn, they're all the job opening platforms, and they're just scrolling, apply. And they just, every day, let's say 60 applications, 70 applications. But even when they're not applying, they're doom jobbing. They're constantly flipping through anything that will get them an interview, even if it's a stretch in terms of their qualifications, et cetera. That is almost as bad as doom scrolling on social media, where you're never satisfied. It will never get you what you want to achieve, which is you're hoping to land on a job, apply for it, and right away get an interview call. That's the fantasy. That's what you want. It rarely happens. And it's actually, doom jobbing is really bad for you, because you'll never be satisfied from it. In fact, it'll make you feel even worse. After that, after you go through applying, times when they're lows when you don't hear anything, it's crickets. And most people think it's because they're not spending enough time applying. So that's when they spend more time. It's actually the opposite. In reality, I think the people who do it right, they spend less and less time because they're so targeted. They know what they want. They know where to look. They know what types of jobs to apply for, that they end up spending 1 or 2 hours a day on work sort of stuff. That's including interview time. And the rest of the day they spend on development. So that development could come in the form for some people of certifications, et cetera, but it could also come in the form of exercising, focusing on your mental health, focusing on your physical health, and focusing on being in an environment that's actually motivational and inspirational, as opposed to constantly being in front of their screen, thinking the more hours they spend applying, the higher the probability of them getting a job. They're just not correlated. So working on your development, and then also working on reaching out to people, or reaching out to people who might need your help, helping others. So volunteering is a great way to spend your time when you're looking for your next role. There's some people who really, really need their role, the next role fast because of financial reasons, what have you. And I'm not trivializing, or I'm not saying you shouldn't be spending your time looking for a job. I'm just saying that if you are spending too much time every day looking for a job, is not, first of all, it's not going to get you that job that you want. There's no correlation between the amount of time you spend applying to whether you get a job or not. There's a correlation between if you're applying for the right jobs in the right way and you getting a job. There's a correlation there, higher probability. But there's no correlation to the amount of applications you put in. There's rarely a correlation there. So all I'm saying is use that time to be targeted, apply perhaps in the morning if that works for you, in the evening if that works better for you, whatever your rhythm is. A couple of hours, you want to get to a point where you're applying a couple of hours, but then the rest of your time you spending on your mental health, your physical health, volunteering, helping others, and growing your network. Now, we all know growing your network when you don't have a job is the worst time to grow your network. You want to do it when you're gainfully employed, when you have a source of income, and you're helping others, or you're just catching up with others or deepening relationships that you think you can learn something from, or deepening relationships with people that you can help. And you want to do it, ideally, you want to help others along the way consistently. So building your network and a healthy support system is something that you need to do consistently, not just when you need a job. It's a lifelong thing and you need to keep developing it. I don't think it's something that ever stops. So most people are doom jobbing, and then they come to a point where they throw up their hands and say, look, this is not working. I'm hitting a brick wall. The market's, I don't think I'll ever get a job. I've worked so hard. Then they start thinking about how much time they've invested in their career and their certification and their masters, PhDs, whatever. And they can't even conceive of doing something other than what they're doing, but they feel stuck. Then they feel betrayed. Then they feel like people don't appreciate the hard work that they put in. And then there's a spiral. Some people just, when they hit that wall, they go through a spiral where they start feeling really sorry for themselves as well. And they start feeling bad. And all of that is valid. So feeling bad for yourself at certain points in time, it happens to all of us. The important thing is knowing how to get out of it. Sometimes you need professional help. Sometimes you can actually systematically figure out a way to get out of it. I call it my center of gravity. If you want, on my website, you can see that, watch that video on finding your center of gravity, where either people around you are saying you cannot do what you are setting out to do in your job search, or you yourself have stopped believing that you're capable of getting to your next destination. So coming out of that spiral is really important. And then the pattern I've seen for the people who do come out of that spiral, who are resilient, they still have some gaps. So this pattern kind of continues for them, where they go out, they start applying again. No, I'm going to do it over the weekend. They get some inspiration and they start with the same pattern, applying, and thinking there's a correlation between how many jobs you apply to and whether you can get a job or not. So those are the patterns. It's a cyclical thing. Eventually, a lot of people do land in the job that they want. Some people land in a less than ideal situation. Some people land in an ideal situation, but those are few and far between in this whole pattern. And a lot of people, I know people who just stuck and are still stuck. And I'm not sure when they'll read the writing on the wall of saying, and realize that the field that they were in is not the field that they're going to get a job in going forward. So your career is not linear. Sometimes you have to go back down to come back up, a horizontal shift and go up. And sometimes it's just horizontal, but you take a commensurate position to where you are, and then that's where you stay. So understanding that is super important. The people who do get stuck are the ones who are not willing to look at other options for sources of income, the ones who just can't conceive of themselves doing something else because they don't think they're qualified or it's beneath them, status, prestige-wise. The ones who are not open to looking at other options, the ones who get stuck. And once you do get stuck, if you're financially dependent on that paycheck from that job, it gets very, very difficult and goes into some dire circumstances. So there is a systematic way of going through this where the probability of success is higher. I've gone through it several times myself. I've pivoted in my career several times and I've learned a lot from it, and I've developed a step-by-step process of coming up with a career strategy really quickly. So you don't have to spend 6 months doing it, but you do have to do some thinking. There's a systematic way of coming up with a career strategy that incorporates your network, it incorporates your why, it incorporates your skills, what you're good at, what you need to be good at, what the gaps are in your competencies and skills, and then coming up with this career strategy based on all that. So I've developed a process that does exactly that and gets you to a career strategy in less than a month. So if you want to learn more about that, go to edge-careers.com. Hope you got something out of what I've learned about the pattern and about doom jobbing and how not to do it. It's not that different than doom scrolling. So thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.